2 million years ago, at the water's edge in East Africa. A small hominin crouches near the shore, reaching into the shallows to grab a fish. Then, in a split second, a massive crocodile lunges. Its jaws clamp down on the leg, teeth tearing through flesh and crushing bone. And the body is dragged under the surface. That scene isn't just a scary what if. Fossils with bite marks and fracture patterns suggest that deaths like this really happened to some of our distant relatives. Meet Homo habilis. In many reconstructions, Homo habilis lived some of the shortest, and harshest, lives among early human species. Some estimates put its average lifespan at around 12 years. For perspective, a modern 5th grader sprinting around a playground would already be nearing old age in a world like that. And it's not only the number. A large share of the fossil remains are from individuals who died before their teen years, which hints at extremely high childhood mortality. So why did Homo habilis die so young? Was it only because there was no medicine? Or was daily life itself a constant negotiation with death? The fossil record offers clues: skulls with big cat tooth marks, limb bones with crocodile damage, and bite patterns consistent with hyenas. In other words, Homo habilis was often prey to other predators, dangerously close to the bottom of the food chain. Today, we're diving into the story of Homo habilis, the predators it faced, the environments it endured, and how it managed to persist for roughly 650,000 years despite the odds. Who was Homo habilis? Homo habilis lived in Africa from about 2.3 million years ago to about 1.65 million years ago. Its name is often translated as handy man, because it could make simple stone tools. But here's the brutal irony: dexterity didn't automatically mean safety. Those early choppers and flakes were a big deal for processing food, cutting, scraping, cracking. But they likely didn't help much when a 400-kilogram saber-toothed cat exploded out of tall grass. One reason is simple: Homo habilis was small and physically vulnerable. Estimates commonly place its average height around 1.2 meters, making it roughly 30% shorter than modern humans, and its body mass was also lower. Its skeleton appears relatively gracile, meaning injuries could be serious, and recovery would have been difficult in a world with constant danger and limited calories. Anatomically, Homo habilis sat somewhere between chimpanzees and later humans. Its limbs and joint structure suggest it still retained strong climbing ability. And that matters, because getting into the trees may have been one of the few reliable ways to avoid being eaten. But the safety of the trees was only temporary, because Homo habilis wasn't purely vegetarian. Fossil teeth and jaw anatomy suggest a diet that included tough foods, and many researchers argue that meat played a meaningful role, sometimes from scavenging rather than hunting. The problem was how it got that meat. With a small body, limited strength, and very basic tools, Homo habilis likely couldn't regularly hunt large animals directly. So a plausible strategy was scavenging, searching for carcasses left behind by other predators and taking whatever could be cut, scraped, or cracked off. That strategy could keep you alive, but it also put you in the worst place imaginable, right next to the predators. The predators, scavenging comes with a price. Even if Homo habilis could sometimes scare off smaller competitors, bigger predators would have been overwhelming. And East and South Africa at the time hosted a lineup of animals that reads like a horror catalog. Megantereon, saber-toothed cat. One major threat was Megantereon, a saber-toothed cat often described as jaguar-sized but heavier and powerfully built. If Megantereon got close, what Homo habilis might have noticed first wasn't the animal itself, but the sudden change in the world, the metallic scent of blood, and the unnatural silence as birds and insects went quiet. Some fossils show puncture marks and damage patterns consistent with big cat attacks. In at least one case, researchers have argued the bite mechanics suggest a direct, close-range kill, potentially involving a bite to the head or face that could cause catastrophic trauma and suffocation. The exact frequency of predation is hard to prove from fossils alone, but the broader point is clear: big cats were a constant, lethal pressure. Machairodus, another large saber-toothed cat. Another terrifying cat was Machairodus, among the larger felines of its era. Some estimates suggest very large individuals. Even if it couldn't chase for long like a cheetah, a large ambush cat doesn't need a marathon. It needs one moment, one leap, one tackle. And in that kind of encounter, size is destiny. Homotherium, Then there's Homotherium, often characterized by shorter but broad, serrated teeth, more like a knife edge than a needle. A bite like that could open tissue fast and cause dangerous blood loss. Pachycrocuta, giant hyena. Big cats weren't the only nightmare. Hyenas were likely a huge problem, especially if Homo habilis depended on scavenging. Pachycrocuta, a giant hyena, is often described as extremely powerful, built not just to eat meat, but to crush bone and access marrow. That matters because marrow is high-value food. If you're a scavenger, you're competing for the last remaining calories in a carcass, and a bone-crushing hyena is built to win that contest. And if it moved in groups, the situation gets worse fast. Chasmaporthetes, the running hyena. There was also Chasmaporthetes, sometimes nicknamed the running hyena. More dog-like and agile, it's often discussed as a highly carnivorous predator and a serious threat on open ground. Homo habilis wasn't built for speed. It may have had some endurance ability, but that doesn't help much if something faster chooses you as the target. Crocodylus anthropophagus, giant man-eating crocodile, and then there was the water. If Homo habilis searched for fish or scavenged near shorelines without hooks, spears, or safe distance, it was effectively advertising itself to crocodiles. One especially infamous species is Crocodylus anthropophagus. Its name literally means man-eater. Fossil finds include hominin bones with damage patterns that match crocodile bites, suggesting ambushes at the water's edge, leg grabs, drowning, and the kind of tearing behavior crocodiles are known for today. Reconstructions often describe it as enormous, potentially over 7 meters long in some estimates, meaning a single successful bite could be fatal. Other dangers, predators weren't the only threat. Because of where it lived and how it found food, Homo habilis likely encountered large herbivores and omnivores constantly, buffalo-like animals, hippos, giant pigs, elephants, and more. These animals don't need to be carnivores to kill you. A charge, a stomp, or one bad collision is enough, especially for a small-bodied hominin. Dental problems may have made everything worse. Some analyses of fossil teeth suggest heavy wear, cracking, and decay, sometimes starting young. If you're chewing tough meat scraps, cartilage, tendons, gritty plant roots, and whatever is left on a carcass, your teeth become survival equipment. And once they fail, eating becomes harder, and your odds collapse. On top of that, climate shifts in that period could have reduced stable food availability and changed habitats over time. Less food means more risk-taking. More risk-taking means more close calls with predators and competitors. Competition with other humans, and yes, another threat may have been other hominins. Fossils attributed to Homo habilis have been found in contexts that include other species such as Homo erectus, Homo rudolfensis, and Paranthropus boisei. That doesn't automatically mean constant conflict, but it does suggest overlap, in time, in space, and potentially in resources. If conflicts happened, Homo habilis likely wasn't the favorite to win. It was generally smaller and less specialized for life on the ground than some of its contemporaries. And compared with Homo erectus in particular, the gap becomes clearer in many reconstructions: larger bodies, larger brains in some specimens, and eventually more advanced tool traditions. Even non-human primates could be dangerous. A large baboon-like primate such as Theropithecus, bigger and stronger than modern baboons, wouldn't need to hunt humans to be a threat. If you're small and vulnerable, a single aggressive encounter can be deadly. Daily life, constantly on alert, putting this all together, it's hard not to ask, how did Homo habilis get through a single day? Wake up in the trees. Climb down, hoping nothing is waiting below. Cross open ground, where ambush predators have every advantage. Approach the water, where crocodiles specialize in surprise. Find a carcass, where hyenas and big cats might already be watching. Some demographic reconstructions suggest the most dangerous period may have been around late childhood, roughly the age when individuals start moving more independently, taking on more risk, and becoming more exposed. If high juvenile mortality was the norm, then an average lifespan like 12 years doesn't mean most individuals peacefully died at 12. It means many died very young, and a smaller number lived longer, pulling the average upward. So how did Homo habilis survive for 650,000 years? Given all that, survival for hundreds of thousands of years sounds almost impossible. But a few factors may explain it. 1. Technology, simple, but meaningful. Even basic stone tools can change the game. They can open bones for marrow, slice through tough tissue, and process plants more efficiently. And while more complex shelters are usually associated with later humans, even simple windbreaks or temporary structures, if used, could have helped reduce exposure in harsh weather. 2. Strength in numbers. Living in groups matters. More eyes. More ears. More chances to spot danger early. Some estimates suggest group sizes could have been substantial, possibly reaching dozens of individuals in certain contexts. The exact number is debated, but the principle is solid: if you're weak alone, you survive by not being alone. 3. High birth rates. This part is grim, but realistic. One reason a population can persist under extreme mortality is high reproduction. If many individuals die, the only way the line continues is if enough children are born, and enough survive long enough to reproduce. Legacy. The story of Homo habilis isn't just ancient tragedy for its own sake. It's a reminder of how fragile early humans were, and how much had to go right, over and over again, for anything like us to exist today. An average lifespan, like 12 years, isn't just a statistic. It represents an environment where survival was a daily achievement, and death was a constant possibility. Modern humans average more than 70 years in many places, not because we're magically tougher, but because we live inside layers of protection, medicine, shelter, sanitation, stable food systems, and safer environments. We don't have to worry about being dragged under by a crocodile while grabbing fish with bare hands. We don't have to sleep in trees to avoid big cats. That feels normal, until you zoom out across the deep timeline of human evolution. Homo habilis disappeared around 1.65 million years ago. The exact reasons are still debated, but climate pressures and competition with other human species likely played a role. In many narratives, Homo erectus represents the next step: larger bodies, larger brains in some cases, and more advanced technologies that improve survival on the ground. But Homo habilis didn't vanish without a trace. The tool-making tradition it represents, and the shift toward more frequent meat consumption and higher quality calories, may have helped set the stage for later human evolution. Even if it often scavenged rather than hunted, those calories could have mattered. So when we talk about Homo habilis as unlucky, it's not to dismiss it. It's to recognize just how brutal the early world was, and how persistent our lineage had to be to make it through. Today, we covered Homo habilis, one of the toughest, most tested early human species we know. If you liked the video, please subscribe so that the channel also survives.